What do you do when you're asked to see a patient whose eyes is rolling to the back of their head, they're unresponsive, they're pale, and you are 30,000 plus feet in the air? This was me a couple weeks ago, and I'll be sharing how I handled my first ever on-air medical emergency. So if you're interested to find out what happened as well as learn about the condition anemia, then stay tuned for this video. So what had happened was I woke up to an announcement by the aircraft crew who were basically asking for any medical doctors on board to assist with the medical emergency at the back of the plane. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to refer to the patient as A. When I got to the back of the plane, A was pale, they were unresponsive, their eyes were rolling to the back of their head. And as you can imagine, when you're in the air, the resources that you have available to you aren't the same as those in the hospital. Another doctor who was already there, and between us, we took a history, did an examination, we recorded the observations as best as we could with the limited resources at hand. And we kindly asked the passengers on A's row to get up so that we could lie A in the recovery position. A did begin to feel a lot better, looked less pale, started engaging in conversation with us and joking around with us, and we kindly asked the air crew to signal to the ground for the paramedics to meet us as soon as we landed. And that's exactly what happened in the space of an hour. From the history, it was evident that A suffered from a condition known as anemia, and they were also prone to fainting. So the anemia, fainting, and of course being up in the air where the oxygen concentration is actually less than when you're on the ground made A feel unwell and have a fainting episode whilst we were in the air. And that leads nicely to the topic of anemia. In your blood, you have a group of cells that are known as the red blood cells, and they have a protein known as haemoglobin attached to it. And haemoglobin is super important because it allows oxygen to be delivered to different parts of our body. And in case you didn't know this, the red blood cells actually have a lifespan of 120 days. So every 120 days, you have a new set of red blood cells, and iron is super important in this regeneration process. So by that definition then, anemia is basically when you have a low number of red blood cells or you have a low amount of haemoglobin. And the symptoms of anemia vary from person to person. Some people don't have any symptoms, other people have symptoms so mild that they just disregard it. But the more common symptoms of anemia include looking pale, feeling short of breath, feeling tired and lethargic, having weird cravings for things such as clay, dirt, mud, and also having changes to the nails. And these changes can be described as spoon-shaped nails, and I'll insert a picture here. And there are so many different reasons as to why an individual can develop anemia, and I'll run through some reasons with you. The first is chronic bleeding or chronic blood loss, and this can be seen in individuals who have heavy periods, have recurrent nosebleeds, or are regular blood donors. The second cause is an increased need, and this can be seen in puberty, in pregnancy, or when a female is breastfeeding. And if this increased need for iron isn't met, then a deficiency can develop relatively quickly. The third is diet. And in order for this to make sense, I'm going to break things down a little bit for you. So there's actually two types of iron. You have heme iron and non-heme iron. And heme iron is found in animal tissue, and it's absorbed by the body relatively quickly and easily in comparison to the non-heme iron. And in certain diets such as vegan diets, vegetarian diets, or a chronic fad diet, which people typically go on if they're trying to lose weight relatively quickly. So individuals on these diets may have less exposure to iron, and that can result in an iron deficiency developing and leading to anemia. And the last cause I'm going to touch on today is inability to absorb iron. So on average, an adult will absorb 10 to 15% of iron. If an individual has any condition that can impair how the iron is absorbed by the body, then of course less iron will be absorbed by the body. And the most common condition that causes this is celiac disease. Celiac disease is basically a condition where the body attacks itself whenever gluten is taken in, and in particular it damages the gut, the small intestine, which impairs how nutrients are taken in by the individual's body. You're probably wondering, well, how is an individual diagnosed with anemia? And if they are diagnosed with anemia, what happens? So we'll start off with the first. Anemia is a treatable condition. What your healthcare professional will typically do is identify the cause of the anemia in the first place to make sure that the root of the issue is being dealt with. And if they find that there is an iron deficiency, then the iron deficiency can be treated by taking iron supplements. So that wraps up my story time / explanation of anemia. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, but most importantly, share this with someone who you think needs to know about anemia or who may even be anemic, and I'll see you in my next video. Have a lovely day, Dr. Uyiosa.